So revenue growth feels good, but if your inventory is growing faster than your revenue, you're not becoming more efficient. And here I want to show whether your operation scales or becomes heavier and more, cash hungry, cash needy over time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create this heat map here, and it's going to say, blower parts with the inventory was 7.3% of revenue for the revenue of the month of January 31st. And then we're going to do that for all of these and then create some overalls for both. So this is overall by month. This is overall by part category. Okay, so let's get started. What we have here is we have a data set. If you want this, there's a link to download it. If you can't find it, shoot me an email. But with that being said, it's probably something you've seen before, basic inventory, spreadsheet. And if you need some help creating this, just let me know. But you can recreate this in Service Titan, whatever software you're using. It's going to have some kind of inventory functionality. And so the main columns we need for this data set is going to be the month end, and then the part category, and then beginning and ending inventory. So if you have these 4 columns, then you're good to go. And so what we need, the only formula on this sheet we have to calculate is to get the average inventory, because that's the number we're going to use. We're going to use the average of these based on the parts category. And so, divided by revenue. And what you can see here is that revenue, this is not like the revenue by part. This is just the revenue for January 31st. And so I'm going to show you a formula on how to sort of strip this out. Okay, so let's get started. To do the average inventory is pretty straightforward. Just average, and then these 2 numbers. And you can see, they match. So do that. I'm going to delete this. And then the next thing that we need to do is we need to get a unique list of the months here, and then a unique list of the parts here. And so the way you do that is with equals unique. So unique, and then you could just do this, and you can see just like that, we have the months here. And also make sure they're sorted alphabetically or like numerically, smallest to largest. And then I'll add the word month here, and then I'll copy this, and then I'll press Control-Shift-V to paste it. Okay, so we want to do the same exact thing with the parts category. So equals unique, and then right here, the parts category. And then we have that. And so the first thing that we want to do is we want to put this in alphabetical order. And so we can do that with this sort function. I mean, you don't have to. It's going to be easier to read things. Whenever you're looking for a certain name, it's not going to be, in some weird, sequence. And then the next thing we want is we want to put this across the top. We don't want it in a column. We want it across the top. And instead of, dragging these, over and stuff like that, you can just use the transpose function. And so now you can see it's across the top. So Control-C and then Control-Shift-V, and we're good to go. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to get the sum of the average inventory by part and then by month. So sum if the parts category, sum the average range if the parts category is a blower part and if the month is January 31st. And so that function is sum if s. So sum average inventory here if the month end date here, comma, is B3. It's in cell B3 on the other sheet, comma, and if the part category here, comma, is C2, right? So C2 is right here. And so we have that, and now that's the numerator, right? We're looking for a percentage. That's a percentage of revenue. So that's the numerator. So on the bottom of the equation is we need the revenue of this month. So we can't sum this because this isn't the revenue. Each one of these is the revenue. So what we need here is we need to do what's called a VLOOKUP. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could do this. You could use a VLOOKUP, which stands for vertical lookup. You can use an XLOOKUP. You can use an index and match. Like, there's a lot of different ways, but I'll use VLOOKUP here. And what I'll do is I'll do it in a different cell just to show you. So equals VLOOKUP. And then the first thing is, what do we want to look up? And we want to find January 31st, comma. And then the table is here. It's going to be all of these, all the way to total revenue. That's the table array. You can see right here, table array, comma. And then the column index number is what do we want to return, right? Do we want to return main warehouse? Do we want to return a SKU number? And no, we want to return total revenue. And so now you just have to count the number of columns. So column A is 1, column B is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 16 columns over. And then comma, and then 0, because we want an exact match. And so you can see 219,566, 219,566. And so it's working. And now what we do is we just want to take this, copy it, and then divide. Divide this by the formula we just copied. And now you get a percentage. Okay, so we're good there. All we have to do is copy this over and copy it down, but we need to tell Excel because what you'll notice is this is for blower parts, but now it came down. And this is called relative referencing. And we want to, meaning as you drag it over, as you drag it across, like C will go to D if you drag it over, but C2 will go to C3 as you drag it down. So we need to do what's called lock these cells. And so for anywhere you see a column, put a $ before. So we want to lock this column. So as we go over, it does not change. But as we go top to bottom, it does change. So lock the columns for that. And then for the blower parts, we want to lock the row. So put the $ before the number. After the letter, before the number. But letters are columns in Excel, right? Like column B, column A, row 2, row 3. Let's see. So that should be good. And then finally, you still can't drag it over, and the reason is because of tables. You'll see average inventory changes to month end date, but you can copy it and then paste. And so now you can have, your inventory as a percentage of revenue by part, by month. And so the rest is just sort of a little bit of, housekeeping as far as conditional formatting and stuff like that. But we just want an overall. And with overall, you can just sum these. So for the month of January, 78.6% of your inventory, your revenue was 78.6%, or your inventory was 78.6% of your revenue. Sorry. And then for this one, it gets a little bit tricky. And the reason is because we need to get a total sum of revenue. So in other words, if we want to have the total average inventory of capacitors for the whole year, the whole data set, divided by the revenue of the data set, then we have to redo the revenue. So like this, and then if you remember, this formula here would give us that revenue amount. We have to change this cell to this cell. And we have the revenue amount, and then you can just double click. And so now the sum of this is the denominator. So all we have to do is just take this, copy, and then what I'll do is I'll paste. But wherever you see the month here, we can remove that. Meaning we don't want to filter on month. So we don't need the month end date here. We just want to sum the inventory where the part category is blower parts. And then for this whole section here, we don't need it because we're not looking up a single month. What we can do is we can do sum. We want the sum of this. But press F4 after, because now you can see the $ before and after each one, is because we never want the sum of that to change. Like here, let me show you what I mean. If we were to remove this and then we paste this over, you get an error because now this is the sum range. But we want this to be the sum range every time. And so again, just press F4, or you can manually put a $ before the letter and before the number for both. And then here, you can do that. And then Control-Shift-5 to make it a percent. And then if you want to, you can just get overall in the data set, right? Meaning, give me the sum of the average inventory divided by the sum of this. So we can call this revenue. So equals sum table average inventory. And you have that. And then we want to divide this by the sum of this. Let's see what's going on here. Guess you got to close your brackets. And you can see for the year, your revenue or your inventory is 94% of your revenue. And so, yeah, so the final thing is let's do some conditional formatting here. And so you can highlight the whole range and do, home, conditional formatting, color scales. You can do red is high because a higher percentage could be bad, but not necessarily. But however you want to do it, you can do red is high or green is high. But the problem with this is that, products that are expensive are going to be a high percentage, right? Like compressors are a high percentage. And so what we can do here is we can not format it that way. We can highlight this and we can do each individual column, right? And so you highlight this and then double click the format painter and then just click the first one in each row and then you're good. And then down here, you can do the same thing, just highlight, conditional formatting, color scales like this. So this just tells you compressors are, the biggest percentage, motors are number 2 and stuff like that. But anyways, so that's all I got for this one. As always, if you have any questions, shoot me an email, questions@databoards. If you want this file, just let me know. There's a link to download it. If you can't find it, just shoot me an email. And if you need some help, structuring your data or getting these insights from your data, also there's a link to my calendar. Or if not, you can just shoot me an email. But anyways, that's it for this one, and I'll see you in future lessons.